Okay, I'd like to call this March 28th, 2019 meeting of the ABCGC to order. Please join me in a silent invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Follow along with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting, Commissioner O'Malley, Commissioner Hart-Stebbins, Councilor Harris are excused. We'd like to welcome tonight our City Chief of Staff, Santiago Chavez, and we'd like to welcome him to the City of Albuquerque. So thank you for joining us this evening. You're welcome, and I know they stole you from the county, so we're not happy, but we'll live with it. I guess we'll figure out a way to survive. All right, so we'll go on to approval of minutes. The minutes of the January 24th, 2019 ABCGC meeting. I move to approve those, and I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. All opposed? Motion passes. We will now move on to public comment. Do we have...
We have one signed up this evening.
We have one speaker? Oh, okay. Yeah, he knows the rules.
Tad Naminsky.
Yes.
Was a lucky guess. Thank you. Well, what I want to talk today, I want to ask you, do we have corruption legal in the United States of America? Yes, it is legal. It is lawful? No. Do we have an honest politician? Well, politicians are corrupted. Answer is no, this case. According to Princeton University, most prestigious study. I'm not pulling it. You go on the website, you will find that. Now, do money influence politicians? Yes, that's what lobbyists do. We have so many lawyers, lobbyists, in the city of Albuquerque, unbelievable. Every department, city council has many lobbyists, lawyers. Now, who is right here? Let me look at. Republican? No, I don't see it. Any Republican? Democrat? Why Democrats here? Because they are liberal. Here is money issue for mental. Are you really have a problem with mental money or yourself? That's right. Think about it. Now, is psychiatry, psychology does not influence business? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meninsky. So now we'll move on to new business, which is the Bosque Ecosystem Monitoring Program. So if you'd like to make your way up to the podium, I appreciate you coming in this evening.
Thank you. I'm Dan Shaw. Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me. And I'm joined by several colleagues who will introduce themselves as they come to the podium. I'm with the Bosque Ecosystem Monitoring Program, and we are in our 23rd year of partnership with the city and the county in a variety of ways. A lot of what you'll hear this evening are programs and the work of students and our network of schools that are funded by both city and county funds and have been for quite some time. So the Bosque, that river of green along the the Rio Grande. And the Rio Grande is not like it was before. And a lot of folks don't realize that 15,000 years ago, the Bosque would have had 20,000-pound mammoths marching around. And when first people arrived on this landscape, they started altering this landscape and what was found on it. And so this has been a changing ecosystem since the first people arrived. And as Puebloan people settled and paid attention and cared for this land, it's from that tradition of knowledge acquisition on a home watershed that we move. Catherine Cordova describes the Rio Grande as the New Mexico Silk Highway, where from Chiapas to Chaco, these scarlet macaws were carried. It's the same river that Pope would have drank from as he carried his knotted cords, or Bishop Lamy would have blessed, or whatever Netflix movie stars will do in it once they arrive in full force. So it's a river that has had many different cultures and communities engaged with it. But the work that we do is with this bosque as it is now. And the bosque as it is now is a ecological anomaly. It is not what anyone else in any of those generations would have seen. We are looking at a dying and senescing forest, and we have a lot of these folks that we send out into the field to monitor the Rio Grande. And each month we put about 60,000 pounds of school kids into our monitoring system. And they are making tracks of their own across this landscape. And I'm going to be sharing this floor with several of them in a few moments. But I want to finish with a quick story. The young man who's wearing the tan hat, he's leading a group in our after-school BEMP program, and he grew up in our program as a 9-year-old. He started at Harrison Middle School, monitoring site for BEMP, and he is now working as a UNM intern with us. Here he is at with some students from Inez Elementary, one of our Title I school partners, and he actually on Halloween evening had a group of students from Inez he was working with in this bosque monitoring, tracking the environmental change. And their parents were arriving to pick them up to take them trick-or-treating. And the kids decided they did not want to leave and they wanted to keep doing that rather than get candy. So to tell you more about what's better than candy for kids, I share the floor.
Hi, I'm Maddie Treweek.
And I'm Elisa Beta.
Thank you for having us.
Who are we? We are BEM students. BEM students come over from 50 different schools, up to 10,000 BEM students a year, kindergarten through graduate school students.
The two of us are Bosque School 6th grade science students, and we are community scientists.
What do we do? Core data collected at 33 BEM sites. We collect leaf litter, monitor groundwater wells, measure precipitation in rain gauges. We'll sample surface active arthropod populations through pitfall traps and go out the week of every third Tuesday.
Where do we monitor? There are 33 active BEM sites from northern Pueblos to Las Cruces. There are 17 BEM sites in the Bernalillo County. In our class, we monitor BEM sites near the San Juan Chama Diversion Dam and the Montano Bridge. Each site is really unique. And most BEM sites are where they are because of requests of government agencies such as the water utility and our diversion dam sites, and the city at the Montano Bridge after the 2003 fire.
Why do we monitor? Track long-term ecological changes along the Rio Grande, study how plant communities are changing, explore biodiversity in the Middle Rio Grande, learn more about the connections between groundwater, the river, and precipitation.
How is monthly monitoring data used? The long-term data is used by local, state, tribal, and federal agencies to inform policy decisions, to manage the Middle Rio Grande, track how climate change is impacting the bosque, and learn how humans are affecting the Rio Grande and its bosque.
And in our class, we use monthly monitoring data to analyze and graph changes in the ecosystem, determine what we can do to help conserve and restore the bosque, decide where we could plant new cottonwoods, and think about what the bosque would look like in the future.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes. of course.
So if I were to ask you, since you've spent so much time in the bosque, what do you believe today is our biggest issue facing the bosque?
Personally, for me, is like the lack of cottonwood trees because they're really important. They're the keystone species, actually, to our bosque, and there's so few of them, and they're all so old, and they're all dying, and that's why we plant the cottonwood trees, and I think that is that's our issue.
Yes, I agree with Maddie. And I feel like a long time ago, there was a flood which helped a lot of the plants in the bosque and help cottonwood saplings go around the bosque and help them grow. So I feel like
And what's your fear, and what can we do to, because you mentioned the fire, how can we, since you guys are experts, what's the plan for us to kind of look at preventative measures for us, for our fire problem in the bosque?
We just want to continue monitoring it, and we think that we would get a good idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor.
Thank you. I want to follow up on that question about the flooding. I know that it's been discussed from time to time that we could perhaps simulate the way it used to flood. Is that anything that you all have spoken about, or is that feasible, or do you know?
Yeah, we talked about that in science class. Yes, we did.
So was the discussion that that's something that could theoretically be done?
Definitely, yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have our next high school presenter. Where we go?
Few Lots in the Bosque by Xavier Cardona and Manuel Zavala. Who are we? Well, we are two students at Atrisco Heritage Academy in a class called EcoBio, in which we intern in organizations such as BEMP to improve our community and bring some of it to Atrisco. My colleague was not able to be here. However, he said that he wanted to improve his community's nature. And I, as a senior student, I am trying to figure out what am I going to do the rest of my life. Basically, I'm trying to answer that question too. What are we doing? Well, we help them to collect graphical data about the fire fuels in the bosque, such as woody debris. It should be noted that BEMP has given us the opportunity to experience what it's like to help to improve our community, and they also have shown us that time is running. The bosque is losing important parts of its elements, and the accumulation of woody debris are increasing due to human disruption. For example, here we have all the BEMP sites in 2011. As you can see, 6 sites are over the catastrophic fire hazard zone, which is an accumulation of over 12 tons per acre. Here it is in 2016. As you can see, now 10 sites are over the catastrophic fire hazard zone, and all the Valencia zone is increasing a lot. And if you see Los Luna, the change is dramatic. Also, here we have a map of all the BEMP sites across the Rio Grande. As you can see, half of all of our sites in Albuquerque, half of our sites in the Albuquerque zone are over the catastrophic fire hazard zone, which 2 of them are of easy access. That increases a lot the chance of occurrence of a wildfire. And here are some examples. For example, first, Santa Ana, it was in 2014. The fuel was 8.46 tons per acre. Here is in 2016. The accumulation now is 10.9 tons per acre. It increased 1.63 tons in 2 years. That's kind of a lot, but here is Los Luna. It was 20.79 tons per acre in 2011, which is almost twice as the catastrophic fire hazard zone. That's really dangerous. But here is in 2017. Now it's 42.45 tons per acre. It increased 21.66 tons per acre in 6 years. That's almost 4 times the catastrophic fire hazard zone. And data is not updated since there was a wildfire last year. So yeah, we kind of predicted it. And what have we found? Well, we have found that the accumulation of woody debris is increasing over time, which is really bad. Also, that the accumulation of small diameter fuels is increasing, and this is really dangerous because small fuels have a higher ability in propagation. So it did not increase the chance of a wildfire, but it increased its rate. Yeah. These things are bad because the bosque is not a fire-driven ecosystem. The fire really mess up with principally the cottonwoods. And what could we do to mitigate these problems? Well, we could start by removing the GD jacks, since that would help the firefighters to get into the bosque, or as they said, we could simulate sort of flooding in the ecosystem, since that will not only push the woody debris, but it also would accelerate the decomposition rate in the woody debris. Or we could just improve our signage system, since a lot of people do wrong things not because they're evil or something, but because they don't know. That's all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councilor and Councilor Davis. Yeah, Councilor Peña and Councilor.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, I appreciate the presentation. You guys are doing awesome work. You know, this just reminds me, I know a few years back, Senator Domenici actually did a bosque preservation program. Do you know the status of that, or where it's at, or has it been completed?
I don't know. I just started this program this year, and I'm kind of beginning.
Okay, because I know a lot of the Jersey Jacks were removed, and then I think there was a certain phase that they were going to remain there, and there's hopefully additional potential funding, but I'm not sure where that's at. So you actually gave me some homework. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Davis. Are you okay? That was the question.
Go ahead, Kim.
Commissioners, Councilor, Commissioners.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
To any of you who monitor the bosque, do you also monitor animal, including insects, fish, birds, and have you noticed any trends regarding animals?
The short answer is yes, and the long answer is it's complicated.
Good evening. My name is Kim Fike, and I'm the BEMP Science Coordinator. Thank you guys for having us today. So I'm going to be sharing with you all a little bit of information about the water quality sampling that we have been doing with this silly group of high school students from La Academia de Esperanza. And also just wanted to bring your attention to some of the other data sets that we do collect that we're not going to be talking about tonight. But vegetation cover, tamarisk leaf beetle, temperature, surface active arthropods, phenology, cottonwood sex and diameter at breast height, as well as the surface water in nearby ditches or drains. So we've actually been collecting water quality samples since 2005, so about 13 years worth of data. And LADE, or La Academia de Esperanza, has been collecting data with us for 2 years now, which is wonderful. And we sample at these sites shown on this map here, State Land Office site, which is by the Valle de Oro National Wildlife Refuge. Then at our Rio Bravo Bridge, Central Bridge, Montaño Bridge, our site called Badger, which is just below Alameda Bridge, the North Diversion Channel, as well as our furthest north site at the Coronado Historic Site, which is in Bernalillo. So the main question that we are looking to answer is, how does the water change as it flows through Albuquerque? So currently, we're working with the stormwater quality team, and we are sampling for turbidity, which is a measure of water clarity, dissolved oxygen, conductivity, which is basically how many particles in the water which allow it to conduct electricity, and pH, water temperature, and the parameter of most importance to folks is the E. coli coliform bacteria, which can be an indication of contamination. And we do have some previous data on nutrients in the water, as well as pharmaceuticals and personal care products, which is super interesting. So there's a lot of information in this graph, and I'm just going to break down a few points for you all. So this is our monthly sampling. So along the bottom you see the month, and then along the vertical axis is actually the levels of E. coli that are found in the water at each of our sites, which are represented by a different color. Anything that is above the red dotted line is actually in exceedance of EPA standards. So this year, or last year in 2018, there were 14 sites or 14 samples that were in exceedance. Most of those are in summer months, so lower levels of E. coli found during colder months, winter months. And yeah, we'll come back to that highlighted October sampling in just a moment. But I do want you to note that the green line, which is the highest up line on the graph, is our furthest downstream site. So this graph does show us that as we travel downstream, levels of E. coli are increasing. This graph is for specific conductance, kind of showing similar trends as we flow downstream. The conductivity of the river does increase. So that's that same green line highlighted on top. Last year, we actually began some really interesting kind of fun storm event chasing, or storm event monitoring. So we're actually sampling at the North Diversion Channel. And if you're not familiar with that, it's an area that drains about 80 square miles of Albuquerque. So in those rainstorms, all the water goes in the ditches, in the drains, and oftentimes if the flow is high enough, it'll discharge directly into the Rio Grande. So we were able to capture 3 of those active discharge collections in July, August, and October, and the graph below demonstrates that there are definitely significant downstream impacts when there is a large pulse flow of stormwater entering the river. E. coli levels go up. And this is just a quick snapshot of that one highlighted event in October. So this is actually one day where the size of the brown dot represents kind of how much E. coli was in the water at that particular location. So if you see, Montano and Badger have really big dots, so there was a lot of E. coli during that day, and that's because we actually captured it on a storm event day. So we were able to capture the whole stretch of the river, at least through Albuquerque, and it's you can see the pulse flow. It hadn't quite reached the state land office site furthest south yet, so the water hadn't gotten there, but really high levels at Montano and our Badger site. And one sampling that we have done a few times here and there is our pharmaceutical and personal care products. And those are tiny words for you guys to read. So we did 2 samples, one upstream near the Alameda Bridge, and we were able to see compounds, I can barely see it, such as artificial sweeteners, caffeine, different types of antibiotics. So there were 11 different detections upstream near Alameda Bridge. And at the outflow channel of the Southside Wastewater Reclamation Plant, we were able to detect 43 different compounds, including flame retardants, antioxidants, organophosphates, blood pressure medication, all kinds of okey-cookie stuff. So this is an example that Albuquerque is definitely having an impact on the quality of the water.
Can I ask a quick question? Do you
Sure.
test for the weed killer that I don't know if the city's using it, but the county's using it. Do you test for that?
There are pesticides in here. I don't know if it's the type that you're thinking of, but we've definitely had.
Glyphosate?
Yeah, it doesn't come out like as the brand name or anything, but
Okay.
definitely signs of, big hits for pesticides for sure.
Big hits? Okay, thank
And,
you. Sorry,
yeah.
thank you.
There we go.
And just in conclusion, we gather, our students gather over 1 million data points every 6 months. And so that we have a lot of data and a lot of analysis that's done. All of our data is non-proprietary. We share widely, and we are always guests wherever we are on the ancestral homelands of Puebloan people and all of the various agencies that we work with in partnership with. So thank you so much.
Councilor Davis, and then
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Shaw, Ms. Feig, and I just want to say in particular, this is a really amazing program that y'all have been doing for a number of years. I think the cool piece is that in addition to this being an academic exercise, that it's not just the Bosque School that's doing this. You're reaching out to APS schools all over the city and teaching our kids about this amazing gym that we have here and the importance of preserving it. But I think the other cool piece is these are students doing real science with real data that we're actually using at the Water Authority and with the city and the county to make policy decisions on what's happening and how we impact and reforest and deal with our debris loads and forest and fire planning. Like, this is a pretty amazing program for some 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th graders. But it all comes back also to the adults who sort of inspire them to do that and share that enthusiasm for that special place. So we want to say thank you, but it is pretty amazing that these students are doing real science and real data that changes policy, and that's a big deal. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Councilor Davis, thank you very much. Yes, less than 1% of our participants are Bosque School students, and we primarily serve Title I students as much as possible across our network. And we literally have multi-million-dollar decisions now being made on the backs of the data that are collected by each of these 3 kids, plus the other 9,997 of them stretched out across the area. And to answer your question about Senator Domenici's funding, the legacy of Senator Domenici's work with the Bosque still rides quite well, though the elimination of earmarks have eliminated some congressional expenditures for some continued work. But the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and other Bosque managers are continuing to remove the jetty jacks where it's appropriate.
Councilor Benton.
Just quickly to follow up, segued right into the jurisdictional question. I know that along the Albuquerque reach from Alameda, probably down to the South Valley, it's largely Rio Grande State Park. It's the city and the city open space and the state. But I know that also the Corps of Engineers has certain rights and obligations. What about south of the South Valley and going on down to some of the areas where we saw the most extreme fire danger? What are the jurisdictions down there?
It is the patchwork, and of course, you know, the BOR, MRGCD have disagreements about who owns the land, but they both agree that BEMP is worth sending kids out to monitor. So some of those same agencies, the Bureau of Reclamation, the MRGCD, Valencia County Soil and Water Conservation Districts. So we partner with everybody up and down. We are a lattice work of partnerships.
Great work. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate it. Very proud of those students, and I think you got a sense of how important you are to us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to old business, continuing the behavioral health initiative.
Good evening. My name is Katrina Hotrum. I'm the Director of Behavioral Health Services for Bernalillo County. And we do have an update but no voting item today. And so some of the things that we have to update you on are the proposals that we have out. We do have a suicide proposal out for youth and adults worth $1 million annually. We are hopeful that schools will actually partner with us and submit proposals so that we can start embedding ourselves in the schools, or school-based health centers, which is a passion of ours at the county. Definitely something that we've always looked at doing is building up school-based health centers so that we can access more services for our community, and knowing that we can hit more of our population through that school-based health center for any sort of mental health need.
So I have a question. So what would be the difference, I think, in success of this program from the difference if just APS did it than if the school-based health centers did it?
Mr. Chair, we're not exactly sure because we haven't seen the proposal, but I can envision it being more successful in that the school-based health centers are already doing like services, number one. Secondly, you have some school-based health centers that are also serving families and not just the child itself. So, and they also have a leverage for billing for counseling services and needed services on top of that, which APS, as far as we know and have been told by APS members, that they do not have that ability to leverage. So leveraging these dollars are everything to us in order to do more with less.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, Councilor Davis.
Thanks. Ms. Hotram, thank you so much. And I just want to acknowledge, especially while the county manager's here and some of the other commissioners, I really appreciate it, and all you've been doing on this work, but I want to particularly say thank you personally to you for our conversation this week. It's been really exciting to see the new county's community engagement teams being proactive as they're sort of piloting in Southeast in the International District. As I told you, our neighborhoods had noticed sort of what are these people doing and how is this working. We're excited to learn. Some of our police officers proactively reached out to figure they'd missed the training and wanted to know more. It seems to be working very well. It's a great collaboration, and I want to acknowledge the work that y'all had done to put that out, so I hope you'll share that with your team, but I wanted to say thank you to you personally for making time to help us figure out how to share that story better, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Benton.
To follow up on the school-based health centers, my understanding is that there's some glitch in terms of state funding, and that we've got a gap this year in supporting those centers that were already up and running, and then the ability of new ones to open.
Yes, so Mr. Chair, Councilman Benton, there are basically two types of school-based health centers. One that are FQHCs, federally qualified healthcare centers that get a higher clinical reimbursement rate, and then some that are non-FQHCs. And so they rely a lot on state dollars as well as some private dollars in order to continue funding. So all school-based health centers say that they're underfunded, and we believe that they are, and this was one of our advocacy pieces that we have at the national level as well at the state level. But certainly the ones that are more at risk are the ones that are non-FQHCs because of the billing rates and the potential for the billing possibilities. And so it is a real struggle. I know that before the governor took this position, it was a passion of hers, school-based health centers. So I think maybe the city and the county have an opportunity to go and speak to her together about the importance of this, especially in improving social determinants of health.
And maybe as part of that discussion, we should also be talking about some stopgap help, or do you think, well, not to put words at the governor's mouth, heaven forbid, I wouldn't do that. But I mean, is there any latitude there perhaps to open up sources there, or do we need to step up locally?
Mr. Chair, Councilman Benton, I think we need to step up locally. If we believe that this is really an issue, which we do, it's something that we should be problem solving at our level and not waiting for the state to solve these issues for us. It's the whole reason why we've passed this tax in the first place. However, I do not believe that this is all a behavioral health issue.
Right.
And so we want to be able to complement services that aren't traditionally funded or reimbursed. Another big issue and concern that all school-based health centers have is the ability to, or the challenge that they face keeping information confidential on a third-party payer when a child comes in and they do not want their parents to know that they've come into a clinic. And on those cases, even the FQHCs and the non-FQHCs typically don't bill for those services, meaning that they won't generate revenue for that, so the child has privacy.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just one more. So I think I appreciate this conversation, and I, for our commissioner colleagues and city colleagues, I think maybe this would be something where we could come together, reach out to the governor, and also step up so that we're not just putting our hand out and saying, could you do something for us right away, but rather being part of the solution, at least on a stopgap measure to keep good programs operating this year.
Mr. Chair, there's also another alternative that I think we should explore, which is meeting with federally qualified healthcare centers that are in these districts that are in such need, such as First Nations, First Choice, and asking about their willingness to actually assist in going into school-based health centers for the purposes of billing. So you don't necessarily overturn what's already happening there, but if you can leverage the billing piece of that, then you've got a chance of sustainability. Now that may not help us in the immediate stopgap measure now, but I think all of these things need to occur so that we can leverage these dollars and maximize the spending.
Commissioner Biscotti.
I just want to give a personal plug to the school-based healthcare centers, because I actually worked in one before I was a commissioner. I worked as a counselor in a school-based healthcare center, and the advantages I see from it being separate from the school, separate from APS, are confidentiality issues. Where I worked, we were literally separated from the school in that we worked in a trailer that was outside of the school building. And in that building, in that trailer, there was a physician's assistant, there was a psychiatrist, and counselors. And so kids could come in and nobody knew what they were coming in for. And one of the things that really sticks with me is one time a kid came in for just some, I don't know, scrape or something, and it turned out that this kid revealed something that was going on at home that was a huge issue of abuse. And I don't think that would have been caught any other way, because that kid knew that story that they could open up and it would be confidential as they started to reveal this story. So I saw firsthand how important that was, and to have providers right there, that were separate from APS. And the reason that I stopped working there was because the funding was cut off. Thanks.
Councilor Davis?
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair. And Councilor Benton, I think you're absolutely right. I just want to also acknowledge and just sort of to put on the table that the city, I think this week, just awarded a number of more than $1 million in new contracts for behavioral health work that was in consultation with the county to fill some of those gaps. Roughly half of that was targeted towards youth and young people in communities where they're majority Title I students. We know some of those awardees are FQHC qualified. And so I think it's a great opportunity. We've been discussing this at the ABC Community Schools Board and doing that work and trying to make those connections better. I think you're right. We saw some great work at the legislature this year on a new Community Schools Act with some new money from sponsored and championed by Senator Stewart and Representative Thompson as well, to help us sort of fill some of those gaps and stand up those programs. So I think perhaps we'd like to ask staff to help us remind us to take this conversation to the Community Schools Board, where we're doing some of that alignment, and let's talk about some of these new contracts and how we can help maybe expand those for billing opportunities into those school-based health centers to fill those gaps in the meantime. I think that's a great opportunity, and that's probably the point of this board in doing that work. So thanks for that. That's a great idea, Councilor. Thank you.
Councilor Pena?
Thank you. Katrina, I don't know if you know this, or maybe Councilor Davis, because you sit on the community schools, but I know it was a real comprehensive approach to the community schools, and I'm of the understanding that the element of the community-based health centers was kind of removed from the language as part of that. Is that accurate, or is it still in place?
I'm not
Do you know?
certain, Councilor Benton, or Councilor Davis, do you know?
Mr. Chairman and Councilor, I believe that's correct, although it leaves the flexibility for us to do that on a local level. It's just not a requirement under the state law, because so many of the schools didn't have that capacity to get started, and it's such a high bar to get started. So we continue to want to see those as a part of our community schools.
Okay, thank you. I just asked the question, Mr. Chairman, I just asked the question just because, I think it's it's the key to community schools, as you stated earlier, and that what's been part of my concern along the way is that, it's really kind of a comprehensive approach in the schools, and the community-based health center is that core issue. And I know they're doing really good work, and they're doing some real good after-school programs, and, they have all that kind of worked in, but taking that kind of priority out of it, maybe as we're having this discussions and what we're doing here, we kind of reincorporate it into it, because I think it's key. It's a much more expensive model, but it's the model. So thank you, Katrina.
Thank you. Just a couple of other quick updates.
So I just want to make a comment on that real quick. This community schools is something that we saw tremendous, success when I sat on the school board, across the board. My dream, as you know, is when we first met, my biggest dream is that we need, school-based health centers in elementary schools, because, we're not there yet. But let me tell you, if we've identified that children learn at an early age, since this became a big fight, that early childhood education has become the big new fight in New Mexico, and we know how that's going to turn education moving in the forward, then we also know that adverse childhood experiences also can affect a child at that age. And so I think it's a long-term commitment to how we look at school-based health centers and community schools. And so as we get to the middle school, age and the high school age, I think we would be able to kind of, curve that and have this big master plan. But again, thank you so much for the update. Thank you so much for everybody who supports school-based health centers and community schools.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So go ahead and continue.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, the other couple of things that we're doing is that we're in final contract negotiations on single-site supportive housing, as well as our peer case management, and so we'll be hearing about those pieces soon. We have actually partnered with the city on developing a drop-in peer site in our first library that's going to be up on the west side, so you'll be hearing about that soon, which we think is phenomenal. And then a couple of things. We had talked about at the very beginning when we had looked at how GC was to be shaped and how we wanted to do something regional, right? That we wanted to partner with Santa Fe County and Valencia County and Sandoval County. And, that was Margarita and that was our mission at first, and we were making rounds to see who wanted to partner and join forces. And that kind of fizzled out for a while, especially since there was no funding. But we have a small opportunity to do this partnership that's in Edgewood, and we're very proud of this opportunity. This is something that is going to be a collaboration with Santa Fe County, perhaps eventually Torrance County and Bernalillo County, to serve and have a living room model and a comprehensive service behavioral health service center in Edgewood. And we know that over 30% of our clients, their clients now with the FQHC out there, which is first choice, is they're actually Bernalillo County residents. And so serving those folks out there, dealing with their addiction needs and some of their mental health needs, that really means for us that we're going to have less transports in town, and we're able to stabilize individuals within that community. We're very excited about this project, and you'll see more of that to come. We have been working out details prior to submitting a proposal because we didn't know exactly how this was going to look. So you'll see the proposal coming up shortly because I think we're starting to shore up how this could look. Now, the nice thing about this project is that it will be eventually sustainable. So what we're doing is giving stand-up dollars for the first 3 years in partnership with Santa Fe County, and then by their 4th year, they should be fully Medicaid reimbursable, and we should not have to put any more money towards this service. And so that's the model that you're going to see. These are sustainable models that we're excited about in our community. And so, and I think it's a really great partnership. Commissioner Piscotti has been involved in this, actually went out and saw the site and pushing us to think broader than where we were thinking before. So you'll see those sorts of things in our proposal that'll be coming within the next couple of months for us. And finally, we have a needle pickup site. I think hopefully most of you have heard about Bertha. That's our behavioral health, bus that we cannot display the lights on anymore. We were trying to do lights and sirens, and we found out that that was illegal. So we're not doing that anymore. But we, in conjunction with Bertha, we have a needle pickup site. We have our community engagement teams going out, and then we also do Narcan training. And so the city of Albuquerque has been a partner with this. I think they'll be on board probably for the next one, but we're doing them twice a month now. Our next needle pickup will be April 3rd at 1 o'clock at First Street and train station, is that at the First Street train station, and then April 17th at 10 o'clock at Walgreens on Coors and Central. And what we really want to do with this is it's fun for us to go out and do needle pickup, that's fine, but really what we want are volunteers in that community to come and engage and help us to do that while we're engaging with CET and doing Narcan, because I really think that there's a core group of volunteers where we can make routine stops and really leverage the community and get the community involved in what we're doing. So are there any questions about that?
Any questions? No? Right. Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item 3, I believe. which is Gilbert Ramirez, report on the City of Albuquerque Behavioral Health Initiatives.
Mr. Chairman, did we want to go back to item A2, opportunities for the subcommittees to address the board, if there's any present?
Oh, yeah, sure, I'm sorry, I thought that was all in one whack, I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll go back to item 5A2.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I really came to listen to the city report, but I do, my name's Robert Beatty, and I chair the Supportive Housing Subcommittee. When I first started, there were some folks from Tucson here with a report trying to tell the county how to do this. So I really support the work that Katrina and Margarita have done on this. They've really built a good team. The work on the committee sort of has changed because the money really has been expended. So I'm hoping to have a conversation with Katrina about, is there another way for me to continue to serve this initiative? But I do just want to pitch school-based health centers because many of you know that I'm a fan. But I also want to point out, and I just found this out, so Katrina needs to know this, the behavioral health person that is now in the clinic, in the STARS reporting to the state, has to have students attached to them. Because of HIPAA-FERPA, the clinic is not allowing that data to come out, and therefore those clinics are going to lose their behavioral health person because that money is attached to that report. So it's a brand new thing this year. It's a new field that they put in, and it's a concern to me because if I can keep my school-based health center open, I just lost my social worker for next year for my clinic. And so I think that's an important thing that people become aware of, and something needs to be changed in Santa Fe about it. But my committee's concern, I have a new committee that's been developed. Their concern right now is the continued lack of youth transitional housing for people that are coming out of clean and sober living. We've allocated money, but it's used up and they're full. And there's still a huge need for young people as they come out of incarceration or drug rehab or clean and sober living to have a place to live so they're not going back to the same house, the same community where the addiction really developed. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty. Now we'll move on to Gilbert Ramirez. Sorry about that, Gilbert.
Mr. Chairman, if it's, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Ramirez can may key him up here a little bit, but I just want to acknowledge to that point that I think the city's new awards included about $600,000 for organizations targeting youth coming out of incarceration, services and foster youth, and those will come online here in the next couple of months that are specifically targeting mostly youth in the South Valley and the International District and citywide. And so maybe Mr. Ramirez can use that as a kicking off point for his presentation as well.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Council members, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I don't know if I'll be as lively as the young people or as lively as Director Pierce is when she gives her presentation, but she is out and I'm honored to be able to be here and give you the report. So I do have some summary points just to kind of go over, and I can also address the city. We saw that same need with regards to youth transitioning out, and so I know we allocated RFPs this year to allocate money specifically for that age gap population of 18 to 24 with regards to either exiting incarceration and or foster care. We realize there's a huge gap there. It was good to see that there was some movement at the state level with regards to that as well and extending some coverage and supports for that. We know that population doesn't access adult traditional services. So whether it's a shelter like the one the city has, 18-year-olds don't identify as saying that's something I need. So they end up either being couch surfing or moving along the community because they just mentally aren't developed at that level to be able to access those services. So it's a huge gap, and we are excited to bring on some new partners to be able to serve that population. And so we did dedicate some RFP money that came out. And I'll go over some more numbers. Let me see here if I can talk a little bit about where we are with our contracting. So reapplications for the city for existing contractors went out, whether they're in their second or third year of funding with us or headed into their third year of funding with us. That closes tomorrow, the 29th, end of business day, and so therefore we will have our reapplications in. We had a strong emphasis in regards to how we're dedicating our money, and this is just informational for you all, that we target 4 primary goals in our contracting coming out of Family and Community Services and with the city. One of them is to increase and promote behavioral health stability. 2, increasing housing stability. 3, increasing public safety. and 4, increasing family resilience. So what we're targeting is most of our contracts that come out are asking our agencies to really have dedicated outcomes in those areas to show the city that they're having a major impact in that area. And so we're very pleased to see how the outcomes have been sharpened. Our agencies are putting forth their proposals for application, and that money's being accountable for the services that we get with a partnership with our great providers out there in the community. I think what we had in our budget is roughly just out of the Department or Division of Behavioral Health and Wellness is about $9.5 million that'll be, again, annually going out in this dedicated area, whether it's behavioral health attached to housing, mental health services, early intervention, gang outreach. All of those areas are dedicated to that services, but it is what is in our budget. And then, of course, we had some RFPs that I think Councilor Davis mentioned that went out this year that will be either new agencies and or dedicated money. The new appropriation that we've had this year was targeted at that youth transition age gap, which was done in collaboration, honestly, with the county. I think you all took a stab at addressing that population first. We met to see how could we also introduce something, but also not duplicate and hit it in a different way so that we're strategically leveraging both what the county is doing and what we are doing. So we're proud of that.
So I have a quick question. Did the RFP that the city put out, did it go through the committee process like we do through the county?
No, I don't believe we vetted it through that because I know those committees tend to look at existing money through the Behavioral Health Initiative tax dollars. And so what we did is we met with the county, though, in collaboration with looking at what are you all funding and is there still a gap for that? How can the city align that? We had to take a deep dive into our own money to kind of say, where is an area of opportunity to repurpose and also support that leverage? And so I think the need was identified through that process, and we were supporting it with also issuing something in that same area, but that wasn't duplicated. Does that answer?
Yeah, that answers that. You don't have to go through the same process, which I have to say I have a little concern about that because, you know, we make sure that we go through the process and we get the input through the city and the county before we put stuff out there. I thought that was the process for both sides, and to find out that it's not, it's a little disconcerting. That's all. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Again, I will say that, you know, working with the county to kind of see where they're aligning their money and making sure that we have dollars maybe dedicated in that area to expand the scope has been a focus for us. And so we continue to want to be able to do that and align our money with them. One update also just regards to the county MOU agreement that we had with regards to the West Side Emergency Housing Center. Very pleased with regards to the response. Last week I was able to go out and do a tour with the county to look at that. This is a collaboration where you all were providing some case management services. We were able to look at 5 spaces that we're renovating out there for offices, and also look at scheduling, the hours, the dynamic of that. In case you all didn't know, traditionally the winter shelter would have closed down as of March 15th, and that is no longer the case. It's staying open. We thought we would see a downtick in individuals who are utilizing it because the weather is getting better, but we continue to see averages of about 300 individuals utilizing that shelter every night. And so we're very excited about where we're headed with that and the case management services that will be supported by the county. So another great partnership, and thank you all for that. We are also introducing a little bit with regards to the county and the city have been talking about mental health first aid training and getting more and additional certifications out there. I've gone through the training myself, got certified. It's a 2-year certification. We are partnering to make sure that training is continuing to be out there and available for the community. Mental health first aid training is no different than CPR. It's being able to have those skills you need to identify if somebody is in need. And so we will be launching youth mental health first aid targeted certifications coming up, probably about 1 a month. Our first one is coming up on April 9th. I think we capped it at about 60 participants, and as of today, we had 55 signed up. So we're very excited to be able to infuse more training out into the community to address mental health first aid issues, specifically with regards to youth. This is a priority of the Mayor's Kids Cabinet, also looking at safety and public safety and issues around youth and training. And so we're great to see that collaborative. And I know the county's following up with this too. We've been in conversation. They'll be offering their certifications, I think, coming up in May, 1 a month. So getting as many people certified in this. So we're very pleased to see that. Let me see if I have anything here budgetary-wise. That is it. I did roughly, again, about $9.5 million that will be rededicated in our budget for next year with regarding mental health or behavioral health services coming out of our division. Very excited to see that continue and look at how we can best serve the community in that area. I'm not sure if you have any other questions.
Do we have any more questions? No? Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We'll now go on to item B, follow-up discussion on the IGA between the city, county, and APS. Councilor Peña, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this was supposed to be me and you, but I just really wanted to have the discussion. I know that we were working on trying to get APS to have a seat here on the ABCGC, and I know the county passed it unanimously. We actually passed it here on the ABCGC, and then when we voted at the city, it failed. So, after having other discussions with some of the counselors, we talked about perhaps maybe bringing them on as advisory. And because, while obviously some of the conversations that we had here today, we're talking about doing the community-based health centers. Those are in APS. So, they should be here at the table because they obviously have the information, and we would be partnering with them to get this accomplished. And hopefully they would be able to bring some resources to the table as well. So I just wanted to see what the will of this board was in terms of, maybe approaching it in a different fashion and going at it again.
Thank you, Counselor. I guess everybody knows how I feel. I've only written one op-ed the whole time I've been a commissioner, and it was an op-ed that, that I've just felt that, needed to be said. If we run in our districts to represent the people, and we run on the backs of education, and yet turn down an opportunity to work with the Board of Education, it just doesn't seem that you should, not saying that I'm forcing you to work with APS, but you shouldn't put that on your stuff when you run for office then, because the only way, and this is some valid points that some of the city councilors did say, is that we've had some difficulty working with APS staff. And I understand that, and I see that as an issue. But this was an opportunity not to work with staff, but to work with school board members. And I also put this in the op-ed. I sat on the school board for 4 years, and not one elected official called me and said, I have a concern about some land over here, or I have concern about how money is being spent, I have concern, some of the concerns that came up, why aren't we partnering up with some of the schools, so we have to build less community centers? I mean, all those points were very valid when they brought them up, but I'm thinking, well, we're never going to have that conversation if we don't have a couple of school board members sitting here. They are elected officials. We do work with taxpayer dollars in a big way. I don't know if you're aware of a $1.3 billion budget that we have at APS, but that's a lot of taxpayers' dollars. And so I think we should also have a conversation. I would love for us to have a yearly update on their budget, and I'd like to know where they're spending money. Even though I'm no longer on the school board, I'd like to know how their budget is, where the money is going. So then when constituents come and talk to us about, hey, APS is top heavy, APS is doing this, APS is doing something that way. They just lost their bond election, and we didn't really have a conversation about whether we were going to support that or not support that. But, some counselors did not support it and blamed APS for something that another committee, which is a capital outlay committee, makes decisions on whether and how they spend their capital money. And maybe they didn't do it right, and I would have loved to have that conversation with all of us here, in front of the public, and have them here and ask those types of questions. But I really believe that that's how we're going to bridge that gap between us and APS, which, arguably is the largest government entity in the city of Albuquerque. So I would love to have more of a discussion. I think that even if it was just as an advisory, I'm fine with that, because this is an advisory committee. I mean, I just asked a question on some behavioral health stuff. Did you go through the same channels as we do as the county? And I'm not mad at you because you didn't do it, because all that is that we advise you to do that. That's an advisory, and we would wish and hope that you did it, but you didn't have to do it, and I'm not going to make a big deal about that you did it or didn't do it. But again, it was an advisory, and we're trying to stick to that that thing on the county. But again, it was just, we're advising you on how you spend your money or how you do things. We're not making decisions and telling you that this is how you have to do it. So I would like to see if we can change that and make this ABCGC more relevant to what we're doing as we move forward in all aspects of things that are happening in the city of Albuquerque, APS and Bernalillo County. So, yeah, if we have some comment. Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Councilor, I agree with you on that. I don't have an opposition to having APS participate in this, and I think I understand the concerns that some folks raised that you just shared and have brought up in the past about some of those. And I think inviting them to join us in an advisory capacity for exactly these conversations, that collaboration, as you know, has been really helpful on the Community Schools Board in dealing with those issues. I'd love to have a member here that could help explain or transmit some of that. I'd be happy to support you if you wanted to sponsor that. As a way, I think once we get those, a new member here in that capacity, I think we'll sort out those details and realize that we don't dislike each other as much as we think, and then probably expand and give greater authority to them. But I think it's a great compromise and a great way to start that. So I'd be happy to support you on that.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say,
Thank
I appreciate that because I just think it's important. It's important as we move forward collectively. I know I mentioned this before, just the partnership that, that I've had with the county in terms of my district and your district and how we've been able to do these kind of incredible things that we've been trying, independent of each other, to get accomplished, and it just doesn't work as quickly as we'd like to. But working together, we've been able to really see some progress, and even I was at a press conference today with the mayor, and he's really trying to partner with the state legislature in terms of how we worked our capital, and at first I had some reservations about how that was going to work, but now hindsight and seeing it, the way we were able to really, obviously there was some more money in the state budget this year, but how we were really able to partner, and he mentioned the partnership with the county and how you guys and your requests were actually aligned with the city's requests, and we're able to really get some significant projects done. Visitors center, we're going to get some real momentum on the rail yards, and just a lot of projects that we've all been waiting on for a very long time. And with APS, some of the concerns that were raised originally as well, I understand those concerns. I mean, we have a need for practice areas and fields for the kids, or utilizing, for community meetings, some of their buildings. And I would like to have them at the table to say, hey, how do we coordinate these? How do we make this happen? And I know some of the traffic issues that we talked about, but from a distance, I don't think we'll ever get those things resolved unless we actually work together. So in terms of the advisory, I appreciate it. Councilor Davis, I'll definitely put forth another resolution in an advisory capacity.
I mean, it's sort of like, and thank you, but it's sort of like if I wanted to get something done as a county commissioner and I call your office and I don't talk to you, I talk to your staff, and then I'm upset because the staff didn't follow through, or you know what I mean? And so now I'm mad at you, but I didn't actually talk to you, and so that's the same disconnect. I think if you're not talking to a school board member, you're not really talking to somebody who represents either that district or APS as a whole, It's just different. It's different dealing with staff than it is dealing with the elected official himself. Councilor Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have had those kind of conversations with past and present school board members, and they've been helpful. I think there's a particularly acrimonious issue, and we don't need to revisit all that occurred, where it wasn't just that staff wasn't helping get something done. To the contrary, they were really stepping way inappropriately out of authority. So that is something that's never been apologized for and is problematic with me. Having said that, I like the idea of the advisory board member, and I would support that, and I think I agree with the idea that especially when we're talking about youth, and the idea that you know, when we're talking about suicide, right, this is an overall health issue for everyone and social issue with families. I mean, so many of the homeless youth ran away from home, and they probably ran away from home, many of them, for good reason. It's sad to say, but now they're on the streets, and they've got to be helped, and they've got to get back in school, and we've got to look after their health as well, all the way down through suicide prevention, regrettably. But so I like that idea. You know, and I think that's a workaround. I think a lot of the discussion that occurred at council, or at least I don't want to speak for all the other councilors, but I was involved in community schools. I was the representative for several years when Councilor Winter was the representative, and then Councilor Gardino, and I know there's been a succession of people who have a lot of faith in that, and I do too, and I think that it has a great future. And there was a lot of, you know, kind of sense, well, what about that? You know, is that the venue to really be making collective decisions? Of course, that's a possibility too, but I do agree with the idea and certainly would support that advisory member. Thank you.
And, you know, and thank you for bringing up that one particular issue. I wouldn't want to rehash that either. And I was a school board member at the time, but, you know, nobody did reach out to me and talk to me. But since I was a school board member, I'd like to apologize for the way that was handled. So I think I am giving you a public apology. But I also would have to say that, and let me look at you in the eye and give you an apology. But we have a new leadership. You know, there was a different superintendent there, and he ran APS in a different way, and we don't need to hash that out, or I don't want to get sued for even mentioning his name. But you know, we have a new superintendent who's doing really great work, and I think we all believe in her. And to be honest, you haven't even heard the word superintendent in a couple of years. The news don't even know what to report on. They're like lost, and that's a good thing. That's a great thing when they don't know what to report on when it comes to education or at superintendent. So we're very happy with that, and so I think this is a time for a new beginning. No, and that's it. No more comments. All right. So thank you for that. Thank you for those comments. Do we have any other business? No, there being any. This meeting is adjourned, but our next meeting will be Thursday, April 18th, 2019, here at the Vincent E. Grego Chambers. Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.